With the meeting of Monday, June the 6th, 2022, please come to order. Would the clerk please read the roll?
DeBella.
Here.
Adel.
Here.
Avedisian.
Here.
Buell. Bush.
Here.
Curry.
Here.
Drake.
Here.
Gardeau.
Here.
Healy. Hoffman. Hoheb. Commissioner Hoheb is on the WebEx. Holloway.
Here.
Yono. LaChance. Lester. Lewis. Magnan.
Here.
Maniscalco. Mandyke. Murata. Payne.
Here.
Patel.
Here.
Potowski. Salemi. Sweezy.
Here.
Taylor.
Here.
Torres.
Here.
Vecino. Wolf.
Here.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7,
Quorum?
12, 13. Yes, we have a quorum.
Okay. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Hello, Commissioner Llanos here.
Thank you.
Yeah, Commissioner Vecino here.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 4, approval of the minutes of May 2nd, 2022. Are there any additions or deletions? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Item 5, public comments relative to agenda items. Okay. Before item 6, is there a motion? I recognize
I have
Commissioner
a
John.
motion. I understand this is a special day today, and I think we should honor that special day with a song.
This is special day he's talking to is the birthday of our CEO, Mr. Jellison. I'm not going to tell you how old he is. That's always
50.
He's no 37. It's the Jack Benny was 37 for 80 years.
Another year towards retirement.
So I'm going to ask John. Would you lead us in the song?
Absolutely.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear son. Happy birthday to you.
No, thank you. I appreciate you didn't.
Do you want to make a speech?
No.
Do you believe that? He does not. He doesn't want to talk. Happy birthday,
Thank you
Scott.
very much. I appreciate it.
Okay. Report from the Chief Executive Officer. Now you can speak.
I have nothing to report. Just kidding. Just kidding.
We know that.
Go, Billy, go.
So just a couple of, very important things, but quick. I'll make them quick. I did talk to the chairman, Commissioner Vecino. We did receive a letter, draft letter from DEEP regarding the integrated plan, so that's very positive. We're going through it. We just there's a few issues we want to make sure and clarify, but we believe we're pretty close to being able to present that to BPW and then to the full board for approval. And what this really means is that we'll be able to start our integrated planning, which is to do all of our separation projects in the Blue Hills and the Granby Street areas of Hartford. And there's other work in other parts of our district. But our goal is to start that work in the spring. So there's a lot of work to be done. to get the approval of the board, get the approval of the community and the stakeholders. So we're going to be having, developing a community outreach group, and that'll be, our first steps to make sure everyone is aware of what we're doing, why we're doing it. Some of the biggest questions the community has is, when are you coming to my street, and why are you going there and not here? So that will be part of our outreach over the next year. So it's a very positive thing. In terms of Colebrook Reservoir, I did send out a couple of emails to the commissioners. I have had a discussion with Farmington River Watershed Association, and explained our position as it relates to DPH and the definition of a water source, and our position that, our water behind Colebrook Reservoir is not a defined water source by statute, and that it is factual that the Farmington Watershed Valley community, which includes lots of stakeholders, has not supported a diversion permit for West Branch water since the 60s. So we're really looking for, as Chris and our legal staff start to develop that DPH hearing, that we get support, ironically, from the environmental groups to say, they don't support a diversion permit within the next, X number of years, and therefore, why should the MDC continue in perpetuity with this agreement with the Army Corps? So that's a positive thing, very supportive. Very important shutoffs. Now, I've mentioned this 2 or 3 times. We haven't done shutoffs in more than 2 years. In 2019, the last time we did shutoffs, we had a list of 900. This year, we got a list of 4,100. Good news is, with all those letters that went out, we've collected almost $500,000 just in that short time with Kelly's staff, collecting money from people who didn't realize they had to pay. So that's a positive thing. And then the other component of shutoff, which is uniquely different, this is more of access to our meter for the RF program, the automated meter reading. As we started that years ago, we're trying to finalize. We got 541 customers that we want to get on this program. We've never shut this group off specifically because they are paying. And so that's why it was different. Commissioner Mandake asked that we send out letters to legislators, town officials. We did that 2 Fridays ago. So we're in the process of starting that program as well, and we're out in Weathersfield. There's 50 homes in Weathersfield, and on the RF program, there's 20 in Bloomfield. So we're making headway there. I'm going to skip that and go another very important topic. We did receive a letter. Chairman DeBella received a letter. You received it today?
Actually, it was Friday.
Okay, Friday. And it was a gentleman named Gary Getz looking for the MDC to open up Lake Madonna. As you know, we've talked about this numerous times. We tried desperately to get lifeguards. We need at least a minimum of 11 lifeguards to run the beach safely with shift coverage. We are paying $17 an hour. The state of Connecticut also is in the same problem. As you saw, Nikki sent around an article. It was on Channel 3 News. They're having the same problems. They're paying $16 an hour. So unfortunately, with Lake Madonna, it's in an area where it's pretty remote from Hartford. So finding kids to work out there, you can't drive too far when you're only making $17 an hour. So it's really a localized job for the local community kids. We did advertise on Hartford Current, Monster Indeed, Glassdoor. We actually go to the swim clubs in the area looking for kids to participate with no success. I think we had 2 applicants through the Hartford Current. So it is what it is, but the state of Connecticut, as most of you know, going to a state park, you'll see signs that say swim at your own risk. We don't recommend that. It's not the right thing to do. And we just, talking with the chairman, it's just not the right thing for the MDC to do. We're hoping, we're still trying to recruit young people for the position, but unfortunately, COVID has changed a lot of things, and, you know, these kids have to be lifeguard certified by the state of Connecticut. They're required to do resuscitation, mouth-to-mouth, all those good things. And COVID has changed a lot of those rules that, I don't know how society's gonna get through this, but, we are trying, and we desperately want to try and open up Lake Madonna, but we will respond on behalf of the chairman.
Yeah, I've asked the clerk and the chief executive officer to prepare a letter to Mr. Getz, because he also copied the governor of the state of Connecticut and the mayor of the city of Hartford in the letter. It's a short, brief letter, but I just, for the record, that we have dealt with this issue, what the problems are, and how it's affecting us, and that response, we're going to respond to him relative to this week. We'll get it out to him. Commissioner?
Have we had any response to recruiting lifeguards from McDonough at all?
We had two responses, two qualified candidates, yes.
And you said at a minimum, we need how many?
11.
11?
So we used to have, if you've been at Lake Madonna, there's a channel that separates Lake Madonna. We used to have an east beach and a west beach. And so the west beach has been closed, right, Chris? West's been closed for a long time because we need like 18 lifeguards to run both beaches. And it becomes almost impossible to manage on a police level because they're physically separated by water. So years ago, we broke it down into one beach, and we need at least 11.
Do you know who Mr. Getz is?
Commissioner Drake,
Do you know who Mr. Getz is?
I do not.
I mean, is he a local official or somebody?
It
No.
doesn't claim to be anything other than a citizen, so I don't know the name.
in my memory, I believe we had some issue, and I can't recall specifically what it was, with him on some issue. I don't mean it was a fight or anything, but he has raised other issues with us in the past, I believe. So that's the only knowledge I have of Mr. Getz. Further,
And that, that's fine.
you ready? No,
Yeah, I'm almost set.
you're all set?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions of the report? Anything else? Okay. I'm going to request a vote to amend, to add a new item to number 9, and it's the consideration of potential action regarding encroachment agreement -77 and 105 Progressive Drive, Weathersfield. This has been referred to the Committee on Public Works, was it not? Right. And there is no reason that there is a postponement of the meeting on Wednesday, and there's no reason to postpone this any further. The encroachment issue has been,
So move the addition to the
it's been
agenda.
moved and seconded. You want to make some?
No, that's fine. I just have a report too, though, so don't forget me.
Oh, we skipped you, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Two-thirds vote, that's all.
Can we, is there any objection to the encroachment, items 7 and 105? You have an amendment prepared?
There's no amendment to the resolution. It's just amending the agenda to add the item. The materials were emailed to commissioners, and it's in open text for you to see as well.
So what we're going to do is add this to item number 9 without objection. We'll come back to that. I unfortunately jumped out of order here, and our chief legal counsel has a report from the district counsel.
Yes, I have a brief report, Mr. Chairman, just 3 things, picking up on some of the things that Scott talked about. We have had, as you know, at the end of the legislative session, we did get some feedback from DEEP and the governor's office on trying to resolve our issues at the landfill. We continue to talk, but we're chances of success on that end are remote. That's the not-so-good news. The good news is we did get, as you know, a release from the Claims Commissioner's Office for permission to sue on what I call claim number 1, which is that claim which predates the change in the sewer service charge to a tiered rate in January of 2019. So we're preparing a complaint on that, and that should be done within very short order. It's a relatively simple complaint to be filed. We will file that. Claim number 2 is the claim post-tiered rate, post-January 2019. That claim is still pending before the Claims Commissioner. It will not be ripe to be considered by the special deputy attorney generals that have been appointed to to address the backlog at the State Claims Commissioner's Office for another 6 months. But when that does happen, we will make application and hopefully get that released as well. The third claim, which is a claim that was just filed, is the claim for the Buckingham garage discharge by the state of Connecticut. They were paying that fee in full for a period of time. They stopped paying that fee and sent us notice back in July of 2020 that they were not, 2021, excuse me, that they were not going to pay the fee anymore. We filed with the Claims Commissioner's Office. The state, in their offer to us, very general, not very specific offer, wanted to include the Buckingham garage claim within any settlement with DEEP. That still may happen. Certainly wouldn't happen without you hearing about it and voting to approve it. But in order to move the case along, we filed with the Claims Commissioner's Office, so not to lose any additional time on that. So that's the status of those 3 claims. On Colebrook, the petition for declaratory ruling has been drafted. It's being circulated internally. That should occur, the results of that should be completed by the end of the week, and at that point, we'll file that petition. Finally, we did receive word from the City of Hartford on a proposed MOU to resolve some outstanding issues with the city, not the least of which is the monies that are owed the MDC for catch basin cleaning. The offers were a little short on the monies going back and did not address monies going forward in any substantive way. So I have asked for a meeting with the mayor's office through Howard Rifkin, the Corporation Counsel for the City of Hartford, to discuss the MOU in more detail. And it's not right to bring it to the board yet because it's not a final offer, but I certainly not the final offer from my perspective. So that should come to you by your July meeting. But we are talking. They have finally responded to my overtures to discuss it. I did get a proposed MOU, which, as I said, is general in nature and not ripe to bring to the board, but hopefully we'll have something for the July meeting.
Yeah, Chris, just one issue that probably will be outstanding is the question of outfall into the Park River conduit. In our discussions with the city, must have been 6 months ago or a year ago, we discussed the dredging of the waterway going into the conduit, Park River conduit, and the mayor acknowledged that they were in the process of going to I think the state for a grant. The grant would assist them in the dredging. And he did say in the conversation we did have that in the event that the grant was not accessible to the city, that the city would do the dredging, because that's going to be the outfall for the Blue Hills Avenue separation and next in the integrated plan, is it not?
Well, I'll before Scott chimes in, that is a very significant issue for the MDC and its combined system in Hartford. It's a very big issue for the city of Hartford and future development within the city in terms of how to handle stormwater. And one of particularly in that area of the city, one of the main infrastructure, for lack of a better term, aspects is the Park River and the PRAC, the Park River Auxiliary Conduit, and the ability of that water body to take in stormwater. And right now, it lacks any ability, quite frankly, to accept any additional stormwater than it's already taking. So that limits not only the city of Hartford's capacity, but it limits our capacity to accept stormwater from new sources. So when the Attorney Rifkin sent me the MOU, he also discussed that issue, is the dredging of the Park River and future development in the city, and what, if anything, can be done, either both short-term and long-term, to facilitate that development. We're very limited in what we can accept. And I'll let Scott speak to the engineering part of it, but absent a significant improvement in dredging and cleaning of the Park River, our ability to accept additional stormwater is, I'll let him say whether it's none or some, but it's certainly very limited. And so we have to be careful on what we approve or don't approve. But that's an issue for the city as well. It's a two-phase process. They're not going right to dredging. They first have to do a drainage report and drainage analysis to see to the extent to which they have to do the dredging, and then they've got to do a dredging plan. And I will tell you, 2-3 years down the road would be my guess, but Scott may have a better idea of that.
If the property we're talking about runs behind, between Woodland Street, behind the properties on the west side of Woodland Street, down to the conduit, which is at Farmington Avenue, where it goes into the conduit, Scott, I believe, and it would then be east of Scarborough Street. So it runs right behind that and comes down through Bloomfield is the access to that park. So that's a critical piece of property, and that has to be memorialized in some fashion relative to the conversations that we have had previously on this piece of property. Ray?
You just answered it. That was my whole point. You said the mayor has made this commitment.
It's got to be memorialized by the city.
It's got to be by the city of Hartford, because if, say, 2 to 3 years, if the mayor goes on to something else, we got to see that it's the city of Hartford.
Well, that MOU is coming, if we ever get to the point where we have an MOU that substantively deals with all three of those issues, the money's owed, the Park River cleaning, and future hookups for stormwater services within the city of Hartford, that's coming back to this board before anything happens.
Right.
And certainly it's going to be, if we approve it, and it's approved by the city, it's binding on the city, not just an individual that makes a statement in the meeting.
That's a significant part. You're right, Ray. I'm sorry, Alan? Commissioner Hoffman.
If I understand that correctly, Chris, if it's the case that 2 years down the road, or 3 or whatever that number might be, it's determined that the city has neither the personnel nor the proper equipment to do this job or skill set, does that fall back to the MDC to take care of it? In which case,
You're referring to
the dredging and so forth. In which case, do we somehow take care of it and then build the city?
No, so the concern that we have is, and we've been talking about this project for a while, and this is just another example of, it's not just in Hartford. We have these similar issues occurring in West Hartford and Bloomfield and Weathersfield and Newington, is that when we know that, that a pipe is surcharged already, the pipe that they're proposing to connect to, as you remember the August storm, we had lots of street flooding in the areas of Granby and Blue Hills.
Kensington.
And so this in Kensington and in
North Main Street.
Which, I don't know if we get into a lawsuit, but the point is, we got to really understand, the board's got to understand that when we are aware technically that a system, a pipe, is overcharged already, and part of the reason why it's surcharged is because the river needs to be dredged, and we allow other developments to continue to connect to it, and the only one who is really gonna feel the pain is the community upstream of the connection. We really need to think twice about that authorization, and it really needs to be at a board level. But to your point, you know, dredging the river, the study is gonna take 3 years, right? And dredging the river is gonna take many years. So, we really need a commitment from the city of Hartford to move forward quickly, and really, start the process. There's gonna be all kinds of regulatory, requirements for the city to comply with. But as you can imagine, the MDC is building all of these separated storm systems in these areas, and we're gonna start literally next year. And we're expecting to dump our clean stormwater to some watercourse called the North Branch of the Park River. And that's owned and operated by the city of Hartford, like Trout Brook is owned and operated by the city of West Hartford. And we have the same, you know, expectation from the city of West Hartford to and they're working on that as we speak. So, it's really, we want to make sure that we don't put the MDC liable for, you know, one of the biggest complaints that we had, in Granby and Blue Hills after that August
was
storm was,
surcharge.
you just spent 5 years separating these areas up here. You spent 30-some-odd $1 million, and we had water flooding the community. And in part, that was a 200-year storm. That's part of the, you know, when no one's going to design for a 200-year storm. But the other problem is that the river bed is filled with silt, and it doesn't have the volume capacity. It's like filling up your tub with sand and expecting it to hold the same amount of water that you would think it would hold. And that's the problem. So it really needs to be a partnership. We've said to West Hartford, we've said to Hartford, there's grant money out there. There's, you know, if that
Clean
dredging
water.
of that, clean water money, if it costs you $25 million to dredge the river, most likely there's gonna be, you know, grant money. I can't speak for the state or speak for the deep, but there's money out there that could help them and benefit them and the community. But we cannot knowingly allow a new development to connect to a system that's already surcharged. One, by the fact that it's surcharged and the capacity, but also the river is it's like spending all kinds of money on the side streets, fixing them all up, but there's no highway to get on.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we've got to work through this with the city of Hartford.
Yeah, Alan, one of the issues there is, right now, there's what, a 60 or 50-inch pipe?
There's a couple of outfalls. There's 3 outfalls right now
That
that are
under mud.
that are basically under mud. And when we do our separation work in Blue Hills and Granby, we're going to probably need to put in some more outfalls. But, I mean, we're looking at, I mean, this is early on, but we're looking at, you know, when we build a new outfall for our projects, we want it to be just for our projects. We want to make sure that that water that's coming out of that community
Doesn't go
is getting
back.
to the river. And we're going to probably put it at a higher elevation because in the short term, this dredging is going to take years, and we don't have years. So we're going to probably be designing that outfall to be at a higher elevation to give us some more freeboard with the river. So there's lots going on here, but we're on a path to start construction next spring for the integrated plan. And we've got about $500 million worth of separation work in that general area of the city. And that's going to take us about 8 to 10 years to do. And we're going to be doing about $40 million a year over the course of the next, 7, 8 years. So it's really important to, get a partnership with the city.
Go ahead, Alan.
Yeah, so, Mr. Chairman, somewhat to this particular point and to several previous points that Attorney Stone raised, are we able, when we deal with DEEP or DHS or whoever the heck it might be, that when we make a request for information or satisfaction, that we are able to include a date certain, or at least an area of time? Because we seem, let me just finish the point, if I can. we seem to have a lot of these activities that we're involved in, but they seem to be out there, and for whatever reason, mostly it's the other guy who has not responded or chooses not to, so that it appears that there's a lot of foot dragging on the part of many others. And since we're sort of at the end of the line, we sometimes suck it up when it's all said and done. And because it's going to be a problem, we say, what the hell, we're going to have to do it and,
We
figure
had-
out a way.
Yeah, we had
Anyway.
first filed, with the Claims Commissioner, this is on the deep landfill issue. She had approximately 4,000 claims that she had yet to, and listen,
State.
she's understaffed and
Yes,
and all the reasons, but bottom line is, it wasn't our fault. There was 4,000 claims that were outstanding. And the legislature did something about it. They did it 3 years later, but they did something about it, and they created these special deputies, this group of individual attorneys who are allowed to hold hearings and to make decisions
Render opinions.
that the state claims commissioner couldn't get to. And that process, at least for us, worked. We put ourselves in the queue, they considered our application, they made a determination, and I sent you in my email, they made the determination that were we a private citizen, or were the state, excuse me, if the state were a private citizen, could they be liable for the amount, or for the monies claimed by
Ruled
the
yes.
MDC? And she said yes, wrote a decision that's, I would think, is going to help us in the other two claims as well. So that has a positive effect for that claim as well as the other two. The second thing, example, and Scott may wanted to allude to this, but in our request for modifications to the new consent order on the integrated plan, we had a provision in there that says, in the event we submit something too deep, like a long-term control plan that takes 2.5 years to be considered, but in the event we send a plan to DEEP that needs their approval, if it's not acted upon by DEEP within a certain period of time, I think it was 90 days in our proposal, that's deemed to be approved. Needless to say, they didn't like that. And they work diligently, and I'm sure they'll work hard to approve it in a timely way. But they're not going to be held to a time-specific date, which would mean approval if they don't act. And quite frankly, I'm not sure we would do that either if we were on the side as a regulator.
Commissioner, to add to that, your question, we did also ask a comment regarding, holding the city of Hartford accountable. As we're being mandated to do X with our consent order, which is to separate, remove this stormwater from the system and eliminate our CSOs, but we're reliant on the city of Hartford to dredge the river. So we tried to tie the two together to make sure that it's clear to the community. One thing with the outreach, and we don't want to do this is the last thing we want to do, but we don't want to be in the community during the outreach component of the integrated plan and saying, we're going to do all the separation work, and yet, but it's not going to work unless we have a partnership with the city, right? We don't want to do that. But we have to have the north branch of the Park River dredged. Otherwise, the work that we're doing is going to be in vain because it won't be able to get out of the pipe, which is what, has been happening over the years.
Further questions?
So,
Commissioner Torres.
following up on what the commissioner said, because it seems like we wind up playing whack-a-mole,
Yeah.
with this. And as serious as this situation is, when it affects residents, the flooding, the disasters that this creates all the time, the lack of collaboration, whether it's Hartford or West Hartford or wherever we operate. We are down the road of a consent decree that compels us to do certain things, but with one hand tied behind our backs if we can't get the collaboration. And then we wind up getting blamed for something, and then in the final analysis, we wind up having to say, oh, well, we're going to have to pay for it. So I guess what I'm getting at is this, okay? I don't see a comprehensive approach to this.
Yep.
I don't. I don't see the responsibilities laid out clearly in compelling these municipalities to do their part in conjunction with the plan that we're committed to by federal, mandate. And when you look at the seriousness of global warming and these 200-year flooding that we're getting, this is going to continue. This is nothing, we're going to continue to get these kinds of things happening. So, at what point do we sit down, and have a comprehensive look at this and say, here's what's coming down the pike, here's what we're doing, and here's what you must do, because if you don't do this, it'll be to no avail, because it won't work.
Yeah.
And on top of that, we need to look at the issues of, a very aging infrastructure out there. We can only do so much with the infrastructure that's in place. So, do we have some kind of a sit down with all the parties, whether the state, the feds, cities, ourselves, and sit down together and say, look, here's the problem, and these are the responsibilities, and then appoint, those responsibilities to the entities that need to take care of those.
I
Because
don't-
it's a comprehensive approach to this. We cannot do it by ourselves.
Just, Commissioner,
Hold
just
on.
that we have done that in writing to the city. We do have discussions with the technical staff at the city that understand the need for this. As the chairman mentioned, the mayor has already committed to a $700,000 study looking for the grant, has indicated publicly at one of our public hearings in Blue Hills area that if they don't get the grant, they will fund the $700,000. So technically, we have identified this. We've identified with DEEP. We've had a bunch of meetings. The challenge for us now is to actually get the city to execute.
It's got to be a memorialization. It's a
But we
memorialization.
have documented exactly what we need the city of Hartford to do. We've had some good technical conversations. It's a matter of really getting a financial commitment and a schedule, because schedule's important. And so we have documented that, Commissioner.
I guess what I'm getting at, it's just not about the city of Hartford. I think it's,
It's
every time we turn around, we get blindsided by DEEP, we get blindsided by VHS, and so you have all of these players, and no one seems to be on the same page. And that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Everyone's got to be on the same page. If we're not on the same page,
We agree.
Everything falls apart, it drags on. Nobody knows who's responsible for it. If we do our part and the city can't get the grant, or we get another administration in there and they don't know what's going on, and you get new people who are going to administer the public works piece, it's just a mess. And so I think, at some point, we got to get these people together, the state, the feds, at the same table, and say, this is the issue, we got to resolve this, commit to it, here's what you're going to do, by what date you're going to do it by, and how much money are you committing to this to make sure that this happens. If it doesn't, then we're going to be again, chasing after every issue, every urgency, every crisis, that comes up.
Commissioner, I sent out a long letter about MS4. We've talked about stormwater issues and through BPW, and we're going to be presenting that at one of the next BPW meetings. But that's exactly it. Our priority is not our town's priority, because they have different priorities. And we have to start talking about MS4. We have to start talking about Stormwater Management Authority, because the money that we're spending, and I give the credit to West Hartford. West Hartford's identified $300 million worth of stormwater work in their town.
They're starting.
They've already made a commitment to spend X amount per year. They're coordinating with us in the Clean Water Project. So I completely agree with you. We just need, as an authority, we need to have an honest discussion with all of our 8 towns. Not every town has the stormwater problem. East Hartford does not have the stormwater problem that Newington, Weathersfield, and West Hartford have. But yeah, every time the city of Hartford does a development, because we are a combined CSO system, the expectation is that the MDC is just going to take over more stormwater pipes that are being built by the city, which we have no we have no say in
Responsibility.
it, right? We're not deciding whether or not, more housing is built, but the expectation is because we own the storm system, that we're just gonna take that over. So we completely agree with you. I'm not suggesting that we're not anywhere with the city of Hartford on this topic. We have had technical conversations. They understand what needs to be done by them. We just need a commitment from the mayor and from the city to execute that plan.
Commissioner Patel, then Commissioner Sweezy.
From legal perspective, water in Hartford which we bring into these flows, is it legally responsibility of the city or the town or any town that you bring in water and they take care of that in that flow?
So Hartford, it's a little
It's
difficult.
because you got an
but
unseparated
In all of our
system.
non-Hartford towns, so 7 other towns, those 7 towns are considered by EPA a separated sewer system. So the stormwater system in that town is owned by the town. The town makes decisions on development. The towns have all the say in what happens in development. The water doesn't come to us. In Hartford, we own the combined storm system, which is connected to street catch basins, to people's homes. And so we, in a sense, own the stormwater that's already coming to us. But if development occurs, and we need to finalize these new ordinances, but if development occurs, new development, and they want to discharge new stormwater to our system, we have the right to say no under our NEPDES permit. We don't want to stop development of existing properties. We don't want to stop development in any of our towns. But we don't want to be blamed 20 years later, like what happened on North Main Street, which is, why did the MDC let that development connect to this system, and therefore now the street flooding? So we just got to be very cautious. There's a fine line in Hartford, what we own in terms of existing combined storm systems versus what new development, and how much we can take. The question I've asked my technical staff is, when you look at a development, you have to say to yourself, will this make surcharging above or below stream, or the CSO, and Deep has said this, you gotta make sure, we have a technical responsibility to make sure we're not gonna make it worse for a community surrounding this development. And we can't definitely make the CSO, we can't affect the CSO. If we're spending billions of dollars to eliminate a 1-year level of control, and then we approve development, which just increases the overflow, we just wasted a bunch of money, right? So it's a fine line, but we're working, Commissioner, we are working hard with the city, trying to get them there. We just need a firm commitment.
Yeah.
We need a firm commitment.
What's significant here is that on the third issue that Mr. Stone raised, the appeal to the appeals commissioner, the claims commissioner, that was the parking garage to the renovation of the new state office building. In the proposals in consideration for how they would discharge the groundwater was the option to, at the completion, development of the garage, is run it down Capitol Avenue to Hudson Street, across down to the circular, the PRAC, and dump it directly in. But when they looked at the cost of doing that, they decided, no, we'll just do it directly into the sewer. So the state did have the opportunity, and the recommendation was, take that outflow down to the PRAC, which was down at the base of Hudson Street and the Circle. And they ruled it out, obviously, because of the cost. Instead, they dumped it directly into our sewer system, which they have an obligation to pay I think it's 6.5 cents now. It went from 13 to 6.5 cents when we, and they did. They began to pay it, then decided it
Well,
was too
They
expensive.
paid it for several years,
Several years.
and
So-
then decided not to pay it.
So that's That's one of those issues, and that's before the Claims Commissioner now. But you're right, that is a problem that we're dealing with. That's why, to avoid future problems and to do what we're talking about here, in this case, we're looking for a memorialization of this issue with the city as a responsibility so that it's enforceable in the future. Commissioner Sweezy.
Question to Scott. Do you know if we're still using the North Branch Park River Watershed Management Plan that the MDC worked on and finished along with the state DEP on all what we're talking about? The study is pages and pages and pages. I'm sure it was hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yep.
Took like 3 or 4 years to complete. Are we still using that at all, do you know?
So, in discussions with FRWA, Amy Petrus, that study is more about, so MDC is concerned about one thing, keeping stormwater out of our pipes, right? So it's really simple. You do green infrastructure, and we've tried to do green infrastructure. We just did some here right next to our building over here. The problem with green infrastructure is it's usually in the right-of-way, it's in the street, and the city doesn't want to, no city wants to take ownership of green infrastructure. That study was really driven around environmental concerns about the North Branch of the Park River. That's talking about water shedding into the river, which we don't, that's not our issue. That's a city issue, right? But we did, to support under the long-term control plan, we supported those types of green infrastructure studies to help the community, the environmental community, support the project. So that was a study that was done to support the environmental community, which we asked under the CAC to support the referendums. The challenge that we have with that kind of study is it's water shedding into the river, not from a discharge from a pipe, but from shedding water into the river off of parking lots, the grass. And so that's a whole nother issue, Commissioner. I'm sure I'm not answering your question, but it's part of green infrastructure. We're trying desperately to implement green infrastructure. In talking to FRWA just the other day, they talked about doing some green infrastructure at Keeney Park, and we're supportive of that. We're very supportive of that.
But isn't land use practices,
Yes.
water management
Yes.
practices, protect and improve quality of water,
Yes.
other natural resources, all basically
Correct.
the same
But
thing?
yes, but it's different because that study is designed to discuss more about water shedding off of parking lots,
Yeah,
off of
okay,
grass, right into the river. And
direct
the
outflow.
MS4, everything, you hear me talk about MS4, the MS4 worries about stormwater discharging off of pipes into the river. And that is a water quality issue too. You're taking water off of the streets, you're taking water off of parking lots. Believe it or not, MS4 says you must reduce the number, the square footage of parking surfaces, impervious areas, we call it, by, I think it's 1% a year for 5 years, or whatever the number. They actually want you to reduce the
Each
number.
town,
What's that?
each town. they
Each town.
want to
Each
reduce.
town, yeah.
Each
So,
town.
can you tell me, are the towns doing that?
I can tell you.
Are they, are they
So in
taking
in
part in
Hartford,
trying to do it?
yes,
Not
in
Hartford, but all
we
the towns.
presented at BPW a number of issues with our MS4 issue in Hartford. The other towns are responsible for their own, permits. The city of Hartford is the MS4 permittee here in Hartford, and because we own the storm pipes, most of them, they own some, but there's kind of a joint responsibility there. We're struggling to get the city of Hartford to the table to do their piece.
But
So-
the truth of the matter, it's going to come down to enforcement, and that is
Right.
DEEP.
Right, and
So
that's,
that becomes the unknown question.
Everybody's working at home.
Right. But, okay. Any further questions? Commissioner Taylor?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, through you, at one time, we were having some rather intense and heated discussions here. There was a discussion about putting a tunnel in
But
that
the-
area, the $700 million tunnel,
That was up at the reservoir,
North Branch.
Oh, yeah.
North Branch.
Yes.
And I don't know where we stand on that, but I think one of the issues that we have to contend with while thinking about that, if we're going to do it, is the fact that the water quality raises some serious issues. And we have yet to really determine what the source of that is. And it may be a set of circumstances that either is beyond our control or limited control, because I don't know if any of you are aware of this or not, but we had to put a water line in Doncaster because the wells were blowing out there. The quality of the water there was such that we had to put a water line down Doncaster. Now, if I remember correctly, there were concerns about the quality of the water that was going into the conduit there at Farmington Avenue. I take it that that issue was still on the table and that it must be
Yeah.
dealt with?
Yeah, so just quickly, so the North Branch of the Park River has 4 overflows, and we're required by consent order by DEEP to eliminate those. The plan was to build a tunnel up to the north to pick those up. Our plan, our integrated plan
We took
changed
that
that.
out.
Yeah.
And now we're separating, 500 some odd million dollars worth of separation and basically achieving the same goal. And then we will build a new tunnel in downtown Hartford, but that'll be, in a number of years, 2040-ish. And the water quality, as you said, and as Commissioner Sweezy has mentioned, the water quality is a complicated issue, but it is a watershed issue. It is an MS4 issue. It is stormwater discharging to its water runoff from farms. It's all those things it's pure MS4. And when the city does their study to dredge the river, that water quality piece will come into it. So there's things that need to be considered under MS4, and those issues will all be drafted up into this study that the city does.
But perhaps one of the issues that we'll have to contend with is that if you take Hartford and then you take Bloomfield, if you step behind Bloomfield, you now get Simsbury and East Granby.
Right.
Those towns are not members
Right.
of the MDC. So what are we going to do in terms of if we are pressured about dealing the water quality? And if the research indicates basically that it's part of the whole watershed, which includes non-MDC members.
They'll all, Commissioner, I've said this before, MS4 is the start of the beginning for our towns. MS4 will be the next clean water project. It's just gonna take a number of years to happen, and what's gonna wind up happening is our towns are gonna get their own consent orders. They're gonna wind up being fined or having to enter into an agreement with DEEP or EPA directly, and they will be, our non-Hartford towns will be dealing with EPA, Boston, not DEEP. So, it's coming, and that's why my letter, if you had a chance to read it, it's really a discussion point around, a simple
regional
MS4
stormwater.
issue that is really just annoying right now. It's like a bee that's bothering you, but it's gonna become, remember, the Clean Water Project the Clean Water Act was initiated in 1974. And 2022, we're spending $3 billion. So that's how long bureaucracy takes to get formed. And MS4 will be the next Clean Water Project. So hopefully the goal is that we start to work with our Hartfords, our West Hartfords, our Weathersfield and Newington. We got a meeting with Newington this week to talk about these very issues, partnering with our towns to help prioritize stormwater issues that are really causing all the problems.
Yeah, and 2 or 3 years ago, we had we raised the issue of a regional storm sewer system.
Yep.
Because that's where this is ultimately going to go, similar to what we have Metropolitan District Commission, but it's going to be more regional, and the final arbitrator, I would assume, is going to be deep in terms of what you're going to do. So there's got to be a plan, but it doesn't look like they're excited in any kind of implementation at this point in time, and that's where we stand right now. Further questions? If not, can we move on in the agenda? Counselor, do you have any further?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay,
I got one more question.
right, go
Chris.
ahead.
You said claim 1, 2, 3, but claim 1, you said it's a fairly simple filing. Is that being done in-house, or are you doing it outside attorneys?
We had gone out of house, so to speak, with the filing of that before the State Claims Commissioner. I've asked that same attorney, Garrett Flynn, to prepare the complaint. We'll be handling it with him, but he is intimately familiar with the file. It's easier for him to just prepare the complaint, and then we'll work with him going forward. So it has been out, it will stay out.
That's got to be 5 or 6 years old,
Yeah.
at least that long ago, yeah.
Thank you.
Further questions? No further questions? Item 6, I'm sorry, item 9. Let me make the motion first to adopt. The Board of Finance consideration and potential, is that?
The new item 9 is what we added to the agenda.
Okay, the new item 9. So it'll be the combining of 9 and 10? Or we can take it up?
Item 9.
Okay.
Encroachment agreement on 77 and 105 Progress Drive, Weathersfield.
What do we get?
Okay.
Costless.
Is there a motion to consider an encroachment agreement on 77 plus 105 Progress Drive in Weathersfield? Is there a motion?
moved.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? You wanted to?
Mike Curley is here to
Oh,
present.
I'm sorry, Mike. Mr. Curley?
Yes, thank you. This encroachment request was received, sorry, on May 10th by Jim Cassidy, the consultant engineers for Halsey, Pearson, and Cassidy Engineering on behalf of Weathersfield Technology Group LLC. They're the owners of both properties, 77 and 105. The tenants are Young Pharmaceuticals, Inc., and they're requesting to encroach upon our 20-foot wide easement containing an 8-inch sewer. What they're proposing is to fill up to 4 feet above the existing grade, as well as modify a manhole, raise it up the same amount, and also make a 6-inch lateral connection, as well as cross the easement with an 18-inch drainage swale or drainage pipe. So MDC staff reviewed it. We did a comprehensive review. They made a few design changes. So we feel that at this point, the work is going to only have minor impacts to the easement and no impact to the sanitary sewer. So as long as they follow the 8 provisions that we've listed in the resolution, everything should be fine, and we would recommend doing an encroachment agreement with them.
Discussion? If not, all those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The amendment is incorporated into item 9. On the main motion, is there a motion to consider a potential action?
So moved.
Thank you.
Been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? This is on the Clean Water Fund. It's 728C. Is that the pump station?
Yes.
That's the pump station in the South Meadows, the funding source on the Clean Water Project. Are there questions? Go ahead, Bob.
Sure, this is the funding package for Clean Water Fund 728C. It's contract 3 of the South Hartford Conveyance and Storage Tunnel. There's a further description of all the projects in the middle of the paragraph on the one-pager you received. But this is a $138.7 million project. 48% of that we're getting in on a grant, the free money, that's $66.6 million. So what's before you tonight is the remainder, the loan portion, which is $72.1 million, or 52% of the total project cost. And that'll be with this, or through the State Clean Water Fund at the low interest rate loan of 2%. So you've seen these many times before, but that's what's before you this evening. It has gone to Board of Finance and approved by Board of Finance.
Are there questions? Commissioner?
Yes, what is the amount that needs to be at 2% for 70?
$72 million,
$72.1 million.
$100,000, isn't that it?
That's right.
Yeah.
What was that?
That's what's before you,
Seven-
72.1 million.
Right.
Yeah, what's it cost per year on the 2%? What's that number?
Oh, I should be able to calculate that, but
$2.5 million for 40, is that right?
No, yeah.
2 million
It- Is it a 40 or is it 30?
No, 40 should be about 2 million.
1.4.
yeah, $1,442,000.
Answer your question?
Yeah, so to follow up on that, is that, we all budgeted for that with, this would be the ad valorem
It'd be part of the Clean Water Project,
Clean water.
Clean water surcharge.
surcharge.
surcharge?
Surcharge. It's not ad valorem, it's Clean Water Fund, so we have everyone pays
Comes up-
$4.10,
Yep.
Per CCF, and that money goes into our pot of, that we use to pay our share.
It's ultimately, what, 3.2, 3.7 million? What's the total of the clean water right now? project?
We've got about $70 million in that
No,
account
no,
right now.
the total,
Oh, the total, the
3.1
integrated plan
billion?
identifies over 2056, is it 56? About 3-point-something billion, yeah.
It's
Yeah,
20 years.
3.2 billion, I think it is, or something like that. That changes, fluctuates a little bit. Further questions? Okay. If not, on the main motion, which would include item, the amended 77 and 105 Progress Drive, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, passes. Item number 10, Personnel, Pension, and Insurance Committee consideration and potential action regarding A, an amendment to classification system Treasury Receivables Administrator. What do we do, take these up together or individually? Separately, okay. Is there a motion on item number A, 10A?
So moved.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? Go ahead.
Good morning,
Commissioner.
or good afternoon, Commissioners. So we had proposed the amendment at PP&I to amend the classification for the Treasury Receivables Administrator. That's our entry-level supervisory role that we have, and this was one job that we had kind of missed in previous years, and the change would just simply align it to all the other administrator roles.
Mr. Chairman, this was
Commissioner
approved,
Taylor?
this was approved unanimously at PP&I.
Okay, further discussion? Questions? If not, all those in favor of item A, 10A, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Passes. Item 10B, Spalding Disability Retirement. Is there an executive session on this?
This has gone through PPI, it was approved. If we stay away from the medical specifics,
Yep.
just the conclusions reached from his doctor that he is permanently disabled, supported
Yes.
by an IME that we had performed.
Okay, before you get into it, let's adopt it. Item B, is there a motion to adopt without executive hearing? It's been moved and seconded. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. So we have a 15-year employee who has been deemed medically unable to work. We did have an independent medical exam through our physician. They looked at the specific guidelines that we have in our ordinances, and he is permanently disabled from engaging in any gainful occupation was ultimately the decision that was made. So again, this was discussed in much more detail at PPNI, and it was approved at that level. I'm not sure if anyone has any questions.
Are there any questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Taylor.
once again, I wish to support, this matter was vigorously debated at PPNI, and we went into extensive detail about this situation. And it was passed after, once again, a very vigorous and pretty tough
In
discussion.
depth.
Yes, in depth.
Okay, if there are no further questions, all those in favor of 10B signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Passes. Item 11, I would ask that this discussion be referred to the PP&I committee. Is there objection? No objection, it will be referred. Opportunity for general public comment.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, and all other commissioners, staff, others present here tonight. My name is Dolores Dunn, and I'm making a presentation on behalf of Ms. Joan Facey. And it reads, My name is Joan Facey, and I'm back here tonight because MDC has not been responsive or responsible regarding my claims for the impacts of sewage that was allowed to reside in my basement for over 3 months. I will not be long, so I'll get to the issues raised by your staff and other commissioners at the BPW meeting. 1, I am not here seeking water damage caused by any act of God events. The damage that I justly claim has been caused by raw, untreated sewage that piled up in my basement for over 3 months. Please do not allow yourselves to conflate this issue with any flood events that occurred in August of 2021. The sewage was backed up in my property and that of the church. I was not aware of this because every time I flushed, it would end up in the basement. We inquired about the stench, but were told that and were led to believe that it was probably coming from the catch basins outside. 2, by very conservative account, there were several 100,000 gallons of raw sewage that backed up in these properties. It had nowhere else to go because the line was plugged on MDC's order and supervision and permitting. I want to repeat for those commissioners who might harbor some reservation, the sewage had nowhere else to go but the basements. The abandoned building next door was filled with dirt. Sewage could not have backed up into the abandoned basement, which was filled. The dirt would have filled the abandoned pipe. This is contrary to the assertions made by Mr. Jellison. 3, the house connections from my building, the church, and the abandoned property were interconnected. Contrary to what Mr. Jellison has stated, these 3 house connections could not hold within them more than 2 or 3 days of sewage. Your own staff should do the math and report to you. This means that after about 3 days between early June, when the line was plugged, and late August, when we had the first storm, the basements would have already been filled with sewage. I appeal to you again. Please order an engineering or mathematical calculation for your knowledge. Failure to do so would be a dereliction of duty. Your job is to find out the facts and hold staff accountable. 4, the August rains only compounded the matter. The basements could not receive any surcharge from the sewer system because they were physically blocked off by the plugging. Note, however, that consistent with the City of Hartford ordinance, those properties had some rain leaders still connected to the sewer system. This means that some rainwater would lead from the roof down some pipes and connect to the sewer house connection under the basement. Now, this is usually no problem because even if the MDC main pipe is surcharged.
Excuse me, ma'am, how much time, is this a written statement that you have?
Yes, sir.
Could you submit that and sort of wrap it up? It's 3 minutes.
I have about another 30 seconds.
Okay.
5, everything in our basement became contaminated if anyone here finds it hard to figure out. Let me put it to you, your test. How many here tonight would have accepted thousands of gallons of raw sewage in their basement for over 3 months and yet want to occupy and keep that property? It was so bad that the City of Hartford evacuated the building. The problem is still there, and the damage to health and property is increasing. So when your staff talking, and even some commission expressing support for this notion of flooding under the door of the roof, the act of God is nonsense. In summary, I offer the following. My sewer house connection line was negligently plugged, and my sewage and any roof runner could not have discharged into MDC system. This is not an act of God claim. This has nothing to do with the storms in August last year. The storms only compounded a very bad situation, which was made worse by the fact that even after the storm water receded, my basement could not have drained because the line was physically plugged. Mr. Jellison knows that. The sewage had nowhere else to go but into our basement. Only 2 open-ended points existed for the sewage to go, the churches and my basement. The abandoned property could not and was not a point of easy storage. Calculation should show that there were thousands of gallons of raw sewage that were stored in the basement for over 3 months, causing immense harm to persons and property. I should be appropriately compensated. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we have a copy of that? Would you submit that in writing?
Certainly.
Thank you. Just to the clerk. He will disseminate it. Are there further comments? If not, commissioners' comments and questions? Commissioner Sweezy?
Attorney Stone.
Through you, Chair to...
Believe at the last meeting, I had asked that we have the South Meadows Brainerd Airport on the agenda just for the discussion that this commission, again, Nick sent us out on May 17th, 23 pages of editorials and statements. And a number of them in those editorials stated the MDC in favor of the 206 study, which we were in 206. But I don't think it's fair for this board and anybody that sits on it for editorials today to keep saying that we're in favor of the South Meadows Brainerd Airport closing, unless we make a vote, this board here, whether we're in favor of it or not. I mean, the editorials keep stating.
It was misleading for, I will give you that. It keeps referencing the MDC study, which
Right.
it was an MDC study, right? The title of the.
I got it right here.
The document says MDC study, which is somewhat different than saying the MDC supports the result of the study. This was the study.
But
You've
the
never acted.
the editorials, a lot of them say the MDC supports
They do.
the proposed closing of the airport.
I'll look at that again.
editorials.
I'll look at that again.
Ray, we made it very clear to them that there was no position taken by us in the legislature or
I
anyone.
just wanted to say it
on
one
this
time
board.
on the record,
Yep.
because I wanted the discussion tonight on it.
Yep.
I mean, if we want to be in favor of it, somebody makes a motion saying we're in favor of the closing of Brainerd Airport. Otherwise, you let the state do their $1.5 million study they're doing now in the city and make their own decision.
Well, this board hasn't taken any action
That's
on
all I
that
wanted
plan.
to.
And- and-
That's for the record. I looked back at minutes. You've taken no action, this board or any predecessor boards. The state is going to do their study. That will go forward, and whatever happens with that is going to happen. But this board hasn't taken any action, and if you'd like me to clarify that I'll look through those again. I didn't quite see it as clearly, but again, if it's indicated in there that the MDC has taken a position on the closure of the airport, I'll correct the record.
There was no one,
No action was taken.
they've never said a specific person, or is anybody that I know of
Did
or
have a
myself.
prepared report from Red Oak Consulting back on March 27, 2006, draft which was confidential other than to the board, and I think that's what they keep referring to.
Yes.
But that was the board in 2006. It's not the board in 2022.
Well, the side of which board it was, neither that membership of the board, nor this membership of the board, nor any board membership between those two times, voted to affirmatively adopt or support the recommendations that are in that report. Not to my knowledge, not based upon my research.
Okay.
That's,
Or to support the legislation that was passed by the General Assembly and supported by the city of Hartford and their legislative delegation. Nor did we ever appear before the legislature to take a position on it.
that's correct.
There was an amendment that had our name in it, but it never passed, and we never were supportive of that.
Well,
That
I'd
issue.
even go a step further. There was an amendment that had our name in it that we insisted be taken out,
Taken out,
and it
right.
was.
so. Further comments, questions, Commissioner?
Yes. Even though that might be said, we did spend money on a plan, and the map on plan on slide, I don't know where this is, they didn't put slide numbers on here, shows the airport gone and a whole lot of development, all right? And if the MDC paid for this, it's almost like, well, yeah, we're for it. So even though we didn't say so, it talks about getting rid of the airport. So it's
But the bottom line is, City of Hartford, that's their position. We did not take it, or we haven't shared it in that presentation, or anything to the legislature.
So has this what's it saying, slide one? Draft confidential plan left the MDC?
Yes. It was requested under FOI by the city of Hartford.
Yep.
It's not, just because you call it confidential doesn't make it confidential for FOI purposes.
It wasn't a confidential document. The document is.
It says draft confidential, the one that we got back in April,
That was to the board at that time.
in 2006.
Right,
yes.
but it's been made public significantly back in 2004, or was it 6? 2006, yeah. It is.
I understand. I mean, there's a lot of bouncing around and saying that we don't support it, but I don't know how much money this report cost in 2006 or whenever it happened, but within it, the airport's no longer there. So that's, I mean, that's.
If you like, if it's the will of the commission to have the item on an agenda, to take action or not, right? Take action in favor, against, or not take any action, then.
Yeah, but
then
what
that
it
request
comes
can
down
be
to,
made.
what Commissioner Sweezy says is that, that, the MDC, the MDC, the MDC. So
I
it's
get
just
that.
We're a
perception.
public agency, which people have the right to say whatever they want to say about it. But we have made it very clear that we're not part of that, and we didn't support it as a board. And I don't believe anybody on the board supported it or ever appeared any place or wrote a letter supporting what they're doing right now, the city of Hartford.
It has nothing to do with what the city of Hartford's doing right now. It is that the report that was published in 2006 that has the MDC's logo on it, the airport is missing. So we made the plan, all right? So if you make a plan, I don't know if it was voted on in 2006, but it's, if you look at the paper, all right, it's no wonder that the public thinks that we support closing of the airport.
And
It's a study and not a plan. Any consultant can come in, give you all alternatives and views, and that's what it is, and nothing more than that.
Commissioner Patel, I understand that. The thing is that we spent the money, okay? And the MDC logo is on every page of that. It's just a fact, okay? And perceptions, whatever.
We understand your position. If you want to make an amendment, you can't do it here. We don't have it on an agenda.
No, I think that we have to see what happens with what the $1.5 million gift to Hartford to do another plan is.
Let's not do until, I believe, what's it, they amended it? 2023.
Like you said, everything, we're talking about the north branch of the Park River. It takes time.
We'll see what they say.
Absolutely.
Further questions? If not,
Jeff, something?
other business? I'm sorry, Rich.
I just had a simple question. What was the purpose of doing that plan in the first place? 2006?
Well, basically, what we felt that there was going to be some kind of development would have been positive for based on what they're doing, would be more positive for the district in terms of services.
It was,
Basically was.
it was so we could determine if we needed to increase the infrastructure in that area?
Not whether we could, that would have been a natural
And then
extension of that, yeah.
So
Yeah.
just, okay.
Further questions?
Yeah,
Donna?
I was wondering, since Commissioner Sweezy asked for this to be on the agenda, why wasn't it on the agenda?
If I missed it, I missed it. I recall, Commissioner, and correct me if I'm wrong, Commissioner, that Commissioner Sweezy wanted that report distributed to each of the commissioners.
He wanted it distributed, yeah.
That's my recollection. And if I'm wrong, and
I'm not saying you're wrong.
if you want it on the agenda,
All
we can
I'm
put it on the
saying
agenda.
is that I think there should be a position that the MDC has not made a position on this, as Bill has said. Because the next time I read an editorial and it says the MDC is in favor of this, or Bill DeBell is in favor of this, or one of our employees that's at City Hall is in favor of this, they can be in favor of it. But this board here that's acting right now has not taken a position. I may be in favor of it, because it may sell a lot of water. We may get a tremendous asset, the MDC, by doing it. But we have not taken that position since 2006.
Right, but again,
I'm just sick of reading 23 pages. Every time you open up the Current, every month, you'll see an editorial.
but that's not the current, Ray. Those are individuals
editorial,
expressing
I realize,
their opinion.
Yeah, but the people that are writing them believe that the MDC has taken a position. They're just misinformed.
Yeah, and again, we have not responded to that. I don't think I haven't individually. I don't believe anybody else on this board has. Let's see what they have to say. They passed, the General Assembly passed a piece of legislation that we did not take a position on, and the bottom line issue, it passed the General Assembly. That means they're going to do a study. Let's see what the $1.5 million produces. I mean, and they may say it doesn't make any sense. I don't know. Commissioner?
I think if there's a concern about the perception, then I think our council has already stated that the record will be corrected.
There's two ways to correct the record, right? I have offered and I will
Yeah, so I,
send a letter to the author indicating to the author that the MDC board, whether it be from 2006 all the way forward to today, has not taken a position on the results of that study.
yeah, and I.
The second way to correct the record is to put it on a board agenda and not take a position, formally not take a position on that study. But if the will of my client, the board, is to have me send that letter, I'll be more than happy to do it, and it'll go out tomorrow.
I mean, I think that would be the appropriate, I just put it out there.
Well,
Just-
let's
not
take
make
it
a
up
big,
at
you
an
know, continue
agenda,
to
a point when it's
belabor this.
available on our agenda, it can be discussed, and people know what's coming. If you want an agenda item at the next meeting, that's fine. Request it, we'll put it on the agenda. I don't have a problem with
Perfectly
that.
okay with just sending, sending a letter out and, and just, once it's out there, it's public information, it's public knowledge, it's what it is, it's on the record, period. And instead of continuing to belabor this, we'll just.
Well, we'd have to pass a resolution
Well, the only-
directing
Well,
them.
not, only if you want to.
Only if you want to
the
support
board
or
to
not
be-
support, right?
Right.
Yeah,
A resolution is necessary if you want to support that plan or not support that
Yeah, but
plan.
what I'm saying
Not
is that.
take action is simple. I can just tell whomever.
Well, I'm not saying that we should take a position,
Right.
have an agenda item to take a position. All I'm saying is what it is today.
Today,
It never occurred, and that's what it should be said. Board has never taken a position on this, period.
and I will take care of that.
Yeah, that's it. Keep it simple.
Further questions?
Mr. Chairman, what's the point of digging all these things unnecessary? Because people have all views, and people who express those views, they have ultimate some motives. So every motive you keep responding, in my opinion, makes no sense. So on elephant, there are 1,000 different mosquitoes roaming around. If elephants keep jumping, that's not the solution for the elephant.
But the reality of the whole issue here is the General Assembly had before them, they acted upon it. Whether you agree with them or don't agree with them, that's present law. They're going to have $1.5 million study, and let's see what happens with it. I mean, listen, we don't have any determination. They were writing those letters to influence the Connecticut General Assembly not to pass the legislation. Obviously, the legislature, with their authority and their judgment, decided they were going to pass it. It's a piece of bill. It happened. Let's see what happens with it. Further questions?
Please, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to make a statement on the previous discussion, earlier discussion that we had, and I appreciate the input on those points and questions. The bottom line is that MDC is at the end of the sewer. We're it. And at the same time, in terms of liability, we have a consent order. We have it, not the towns, we have it.
Which issue are you
Well, we're talking earlier about, I understand, about some of these individual sewer liabilities.
Oh, yeah.
City, et cetera. That's all. But remember, we're at the end of the line.
Right.
And if we don't do it because it's bad news or it's worse than it was, we're at the end of the line. We're the guys.
Yep.
So, just a reminder.
Further business? If not, the appropriate motion for adjournment is in order. Without objection, we stand adjourned.